Mel, can I trust you?
Of course! Discretion's my middle name.
I thought it was Leslie.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm a character from Flushed Away, 2006 Aardman computer animated film. It was their first one to go CG instead of CG stop motion instead of stop motion, or CGI instead of the normal stop motion. Was just trying to throw a joke in, the middle name joke from that film.
I'm from 1986, so I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, so do you want me to go?
Yeah, will you go, please? Today? And that's a nice little reference to Madness 2, a Doctor Who fan film.
Nice reference. Right, okay, bye.
I have no idea what's going on here. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about anything anymore. Well, okay, you'll have to let me know what's worrying you now, but you don't have to worry about what just happened.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 24, Story 3, Delta and the Bannermen. Possibly the least talked about Doctor Who story ever, I think. From what I've seen, this story hardly gets talked about, and when it does, it's extremely polarising. Like I mentioned at the end of my Paradise Towers review, you'll either like it / love it, or you'll either hate it / despise it. So it's a very polarizing review. It's either one or the other if you even care about it. As for me, what camp do I come under? Well, again, if you've seen my Paradise Towers review, you know that I love this story. I love this story. It's really enjoyable, really entertaining, so much fun. The characters are all great, and just an all-around ball. So let's get started. For starters, I will do the negatives. I think there is a couple of unnecessary deaths. Eric Sayward story style. Are we sure he didn't script edit this story? But yeah, I would have liked the Toll Master to not have been killed. I think the death of the people on the bus, I think that's too many unnecessary deaths just there, and there was quite a few enjoyable ones to watch. Murray was quite a fun guy as well. He was great. Would have liked to have seen him stayed on. I think just killing all those people on the bus was too much. The genocide on the planet, however, does show what the situation is there, and it does make a lot of sense. Why the characters are green, though, I don't know, but, alien race. Which is therefore my explanation for why the princess is green to start with. It is a bit icky, but, if it's how this biology works, then I'm not going to complain too much. I mean, it's better costumes and makeup than those bat creatures from Time Nirani, where, like I said, the bodies were okay. It's just that head was a bit weird. I think Delta is a great character, and she's great in both the action scenes where she gets to kick bottom a few times, but also she's quite a sympathetic character and enjoyable to watch. She could have had a bit more speaking up roles, but I think the way they handled it was well enough. I think the romantic development between her and Billy could have been a bit more developed. It's love at first sight or something, I guess. Especially as Billy and Ray had been quite childhood friends, although Billy doesn't seem to be that interested in that way with Ray, although she is. I think Billy is a good character, though. I think he's a pretty nice guy. He's enjoyable. He's basically your typical local Welsh guy who's, well, I don't know if he sounds that Welsh, to be honest, but he's a typical local guy who's kind of mechanic part-time at this place, or full-time maybe, and he's a nice guy. He's looking after Delta and also the princess, and just being a nice guy, and in the end he goes off with them. He's taking the same food that the princess has, and he's kind of mutating into a human. I can't remember the people's name. Shimron, a human Shimron, a hybrid character in a way. It's a hybrid. Sorry, Series 9 reference. But yeah, he's turning into one of those, and so forth. They can help with the repopulation of the planet at the very end. But yeah, I think he's a good character. Ray, I think, is also a really great character, and whilst it's a shame she never got to be a companion, I think she would have been a very good companion. I think she worked well as a fun guest character for this story, and I wouldn't mind her being a recurring character in the Seventh Doctor's era if they met up with her a few more times, but not necessarily becoming a companion, or at least not straight away, at least. Thankfully, the role of the companion will be taken by the best companion of the classic series after K9, in the form of Ace in the following story. Except that the following story is the only time I absolutely don't like her. That's the only time I don't like Ace. Any time after that, she's outstanding. But Dragonfire, no. Just Dragonfire, no. After that, perfect. But more on that in the next story, next review. Speaking of companions, Mel. Okay, not as bad as Time in the Rani, not as bad as Paradise Towers. Possibly the strongest the character's been so far. Possibly. I mean, I still think Bonnie Langford's still miscast, but she's leaving next story, so I can put up with her for one more story. I think this is her least worst, to be honest. Langford. I think this or one of the Trial of a Time Lord stories. I think this is Langford and the character's least worst story, so it's the closest to being the strongest. But considering the character and the actress, that's not saying that much, or at least on-screen wise. When it comes to audio, that changes, but on-screen wise, it's not saying that much. And to be honest, the supporting characters, I just love the supporting cast in this story. I just love every single one of them. Okay, Gavrock, the leader of the Bannermen, he's not the nicest guy. He's too murderous. And like I said, there's a couple of unnecessary deaths and a couple of unnecessary violence. Not as violent as some of the season 22 stories, but violent enough to give the story its darker moments, although it's a very light story in quite a lot of places. Most of episode 2 is kind of running around trying to find Delta and Billy, and it's quite humorous, but there's plenty of darker moments throughout the story as well. The tone does kind of have a bit of a shift throughout each story, because kind of have these kind of goes back and forth between light, and you'll have these really long light moments where it's all running around or having fun listening to rock and roll music, yeah, which also helps to make the story even more enjoyable. But then you also have these darker moments that doesn't quite fit with the tone of the story, or at least would if there was a bit more of it. Because I think this story would be a darker story if they focused a bit more on that, and they didn't have so much of the running around trying to find Billy and Delta, or listen to the rock and roll stuff. But to be honest, that latter point, that does kind of help establish the setting and the time, and I think it's handled well. And nevertheless, I think the guy who plays Gavrock does a good job, and I think the character, for what he is okay with written. I think he could have been a bit better in places. He's probably my least favourite character, but to be fair, he is the baddie, so it makes sense. There's this particular one moment where I don't know whether I love or whether I don't like it, but he's about to point his gun at one of his people when he's trying to give him an update or something on his mission. He only really lowers his gun when the guy tells him that he's found the hideout of our protagonists. So I don't know whether I like that bit or not. It's kind of up in the air for that bit. The Bannermen themselves are also kind of one-dimensional, besides Gavrock. But, you know, I think they're alright. Decently needed for mercenaries. It'd be nice to see them back again in the future. Maybe they're out for the Doctor. At the end of the story, Delta takes them to stand trial for their crimes on Shimron. again, like I said, I think the first scene with showing the Mahdi attack is necessary. Not sure why they're after them in the first place. That's not really explained, but they want, with the whole hunting down Delta stuff, they want to finish the job. So I can understand that. I think Mr. Burton is a really fun, enjoyable camp head guy. I think he's really fun. The two American CIA agents, they're good. They're enjoyable, and Garonway. He's a bit of a pointless character, but I enjoy watching him. The actor is definitely into the role, and the character, and he actually makes some stuff that you might not be so worried about actually interesting. He makes if you're not interested in bees and honey and jam making, he actually makes talking about it quite interesting in places. So he's actually quite a likable guy and quite enjoyable to watch when he's on screen. Again, he doesn't do much, but he's enjoyable when he is on screen. Same for the CIA agents, where they don't really do an awful lot, but they're fun to watch. To be fair, those characters, one of those three, I would be okay if they were killed off, to be honest. And maybe one of the CIA agents, just as it's a bit more of make things a bit more threatening. But, you know, they still got some good moments. They are a bit pointless, though. But, like I said, fun to watch. And also, Ken Dodd does a great job as the Tollmaster. Like I said, I would have liked it if he wasn't killed off. And this is after the halfway mark of part 1. End of Act 2, start of Act 3 of Episode 1. And also Murray as well. I think he was a likable guy as well. I think he could have been okay. He could have been. I think he should have survived. I know you've got to kill off likable characters, and this is what I was saying with maybe one of those not so necessary characters. You could have killed them off after we gotten a bit used to them, and maybe or maybe not either liked them or enjoyed watching them on screen. But that wasn't the case. They just killed off the ones you didn't want killed off, apart from the main characters, of course. Unless you were going to do it to Mel, in which case, oh well, never mind. Would be my response. I don't know if it'd be as much of a response as Adric's death. I think this story so far is the best structured execution-wise. I think the director, who was it? Was it Chris Clow, who directed the last 6 episodes of Trial of a Time Lord, and he'll direct the last 6 episodes of this season and 6 episodes of the next season, I think. I think he's usually assigned to the 3-part stories in the Sylvester McCoy era. Season 26, I think someone else does the 2 3-part stories in that one, and someone else will do Curse of Fenric. I think it's Alan Wearing. And then someone else does, 2 other people do the 4-part stories of that season. But yeah, I think Chris Clow does a really, really good job here, and he certainly knows how to structure this story well, and it's definitely looks great execution-wise. There's a few bits where they do go to some scenes that doesn't quite fit so well, and yes, it does look apparent that the budget is going downhill, but that's not this story's fault. In fact, quite a lot of the story is filmed on location, and it's really great location work. That being said, I do think there's a bit in part 2 where when the Bannermen arrive, and that's where they destroy the people on the bus. They're just about to go, and the Bannermen show up, destroy the bus. Gavrock has asked Mel if the Shaman Cream was on the bus after she tells she's cross with killing all the people. She lies, basically saying that she was on there, and then Delta and Billy, the Doctor, and Ray turn up, and then they get away, and Gavrock is about to kill Mel before Mr. Burton steps in. And that all takes place within about, 30 to 60 seconds. I think we should have had another minute. And the story is 1 hour 13 to 14 minutes. I think we could have had another minute easily before it overran. So we could kind of structure that minute or half minute out to kind of slow it down a little bit. Just slow down. You don't need all of this going on at the exact same time as each other. Just slow it down a minute. Just for a minute. Just slow down. And I think this episode does I think it does work in the 3-part story structure, but I think there's a bit too much for 3 episodes. I think this is actually a case where maybe having a 4th episode could help, possibly. I mean, or extends the episode to be episodes to 30 minutes and have an hour and a half length story instead of an hour and a quarter. And maybe some of this could be slowed down. Maybe you could have a bit more time for some of this stuff, like the one I gave an example. Maybe you could still have all this running around, but you could also have some more plot-specific stuff, maybe some more revelations, or just slow the pacing down. It's a bit fast-paced throughout the story. Well, not so much part 1, but parts 2 and 3 are very fast-paced. Part 1, it does slow itself down to get you into the setting mode, although the satellites hitting the bus does make it a bit fast-paced. The fast pace does make it enjoyable, but I think it should have slowed down a little bit. At least give it 1 more minute, or a minute and a half or something, just to slow down in places, especially that bit I gave the example of, with the bus attack now being shouted at by Gavrok, and when Delta pops up and she's already lied. Yeah, that whole bit, I think that should have slowed down just by a few more seconds. It's just all at once. And onto the man himself now, Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor. This is possibly McCoy's best performance so far. In fact, I would go so far to say this is his best performance of season 24, and would be his best until Remembrance of the Daleks. Obviously, it's the start of season 25, but I think both McCoy and the character are at their best here. Like with Paradise Towers, there's signs of a darker Doctor seeping through the more comedic and comical incarnation, and we're going to build on that later on. And I like how it's seeping through with his, when he's talking to Gavrok at the end of part 2, start of part 3. He does a really great job. It's such a great performance. I think that scene may have been originally intended for Colin Baker's Doctor, but McCoy does a great job. And like I said, it kind of ties in with his darker persona that we'll be seeing next season. Of course, he does let off his comedic side quite a bit in this story as well. He's quite a fun character, and I do like how he's got this kind of friendship with Ray throughout the story. Again, this would have worked nicely with her if she became a companion, but it's a nice relationship, friendship, I should say, just of people who they've just met. And yeah, I like the bit where they dance. That's a nice touch. Again, shame she didn't become a companion, because I think they could have built on that relationship a bit more, but it was nice to see throughout the story. And yeah, I think McCoy's also reveling in the role. He's just having such a great ball, and after a very set-based story in the last story, this one he gets to show off more in an open space when filming on location. It must be a breath of fresh air for him and the production team, literally, to go and do this. And he's really fun throughout the entire story. And also, he's got his question mark umbrella in this story. Yay! He just had an ordinary umbrella in the last one. I don't know if he had one in Time to Running. Well, apart from the 6th Doctor's multicoloured one, where we had it at the start. But I don't know if he brought it back to the TARDIS or not. Probably. But yeah, he's definitely got his question mark umbrella here, and yeah, it looks great. And he gets to ride a motorcycle. This won't be the last time the 7th Doctor rides any motorcycles. See Survival. And I also forgot to mention this in the last 2 reviews, but enjoy that TARDIS console room. We're not going to have much more appearances of this console room. By Battlefield, it's pretty much on its way out. So, yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. And I also like how he takes Mr. Burton and Ray inside the TARDIS. We don't get to see them inside the TARDIS, but he definitely shows them inside, which is good. The Doctor has been occasionally showing other people the TARDIS, like in Black Orchid, for example. Although, yeah, actually, liking that story, he was getting them to believe him about who he is. So, when in doubt, if you don't believe the Doctor must show these people the TARDIS. When in doubt, do that. So yeah, Delta and the Bannermen, this is a really fun, really enjoyable, really entertaining story that I definitely recommend checking out. You might not like it, but I certainly recommend it anyway. You might have a good time with it. And of course, all the 1950s setting is a great setting, and the whole rock and roll is just so much fun. Well, it's better than some of the music we have these days. So, on the whole, I'm giving Delta and the Bannermen a 9 out of 10. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I know, that's high, but I love this story. I really enjoy it. Yes, I do have my issues with it. Yes, I think there's plenty that could be fixed. But I enjoy this story so much. I enjoy it. It's so good. It's so good. So, that's my review. But before we finish up, I'm going to do it so kind of compare it to another Doctor Who story that's not very well talked about, The Space Pirates, which, as you all know, is my least favourite story of all time. You also may know from my Paradise Towers review that I said a fellow YouTuber and friend, Jack McCulloch, called Jack the Film Fanatic, he prefers that story to this one. And his reasoning is that Patrick Troughton, Fraser Hines, and Wendy Padbury are in Space Pirates, which, admittedly, yes, they're great. But that's the excuse to say that one's better than this one. I'm afraid not. No, that's not enough. No, this story does everything else better. Everything, well, apart from Mel. But this also Space Pirates is I think that's the second least talked about Doctor Who story, apart from when I'm talking about it, by general fans. And when it does get talked about, that actually gets a lot of hate. So a less polarizing one. Okay, so the comparisons quickly. First of all, the Doctor. Whilst I do love McCoy here, and he is showing his darker sides out, yes, I do think Troughton is better than Space Pirates, but I do love how the Doctor's character works in Delta. Secondly, I think all the supporting characters of this story are better than all the ones from the Space Pirates, though I would say Madeline from that story is better than Mel, but all of the other supporting characters of Delta and the Bannermen are better than all of the supporting characters of Space Pirates. And similarly, I think all the actors are better, apart from the actress playing Madeline, and also the actress playing the guy in charge of the space station being better than Bonnie Langford. But apart from them being better than Langford, I think everyone else in Delta and the Bannermen is better than everyone in Space Pirates, besides Troughton, Hines, and Wet Padbury. After them, it's everyone from this story besides Langford. This story is also much better structured. I think the 3-part structure, I think it would have been better as 4. Maybe it would have been a bit too slow after that. Maybe it would have been better if it was 3 30-minute episodes. But I think the structure here is better. The Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe do absolutely nothing for 2 episodes in Space Pirates, and the following 4 episodes aren't that interesting either. Here, you've got lots of stuff going on, lots of interesting characters, and lots of interesting moments. Yeah, some of them could have been missed out and you wouldn't lose much of the story, but I think they work better here than some of the ones in Space Pirates. The Space Pirate sets actually look a bit less convincing in places than some of the sets here, and the location work looks brilliant. And on top of that, this story is enjoyable, fun, has a tight script, really fun, witty dialogue in places, and some genuinely good moments. Whilst Space Pirates is absolutely boring, unenjoyable, and very little that redeems it. It's also got one of the worst villains of the show, Cavan, and some of the worst supporting characters of the show, such as, what's his name? Milo Clancy. That's it. Oh god, my friend Ollie Pajak, aka Mr. TARDIS 11, put it as, he described him as the Jar Jar Binks of Doctor Who, and to be fair, yes, he is. Whilst here you've got some nice characters, even the ones who aren't that important to the story and could have been messed out, you still get to like them a little bit. So, yeah, and also there's some good effects here that even for the 1987 budget, where things were getting lower and lower as the show went on, I think it's still really handled. While Space Pirates, despite a decent late 60s budget, I still think could have been handled a bit better. So, on the whole, Delta and the Bannermen is pretty much better than the Space Pirates in almost every way. The only things that Space Pirates does better is Troughton, Hines, and Padbury are the best actors out of everyone, and the actors playing Madeline and that captain on ship are better than Langford, plus Madeline as the character is better than Mel. Not the captain on the ship, he's worse. The ship, the space security guy, whatever, he's worse than Mel, but yeah, so that's why I think Delta and the Bannermen is way better than the Space Pirates. It is far superior. And to be honest, every other story is pretty much superior to the Space Pirates anyway, in my opinion. But this story is particularly far superior. So, sorry, Jack, but this story is far superior to the Space Pirates. I don't care if Patrick Troughton... I know Patrick Troughton, Fraser Hines, and Wendy Padbury are in that story, but everything else, apart from Bonnie Langford and Mel, are better in Delta and the Bannermen, compared to everything else in Space Pirates. So, yeah, that's my piece. And you know what? I would rather watch Delta and the Bannermen over the Space Pirates any fucking day for the rest of my life. And speaking of terrible Doctor Who stories, next time we'll be taking a look at Dragonfire. This review I originally did on the Universal's channel, but this one was one of the ones that got deleted last July, so I'm having to redo the review. So the next review will actually be on that channel, and there will be a link from this channel here, like I did with the Macra Terror animated version review. And also the main channel has had links to the pilot, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, that's a Zaranga Conundrum, It's Who Takes You Away, and the Battle Round School of Colossus, where I reviewed them or took part in a multi-member review of stories, of the stories I mentioned. So Pilot, Zaranga, and Takes You Away were me, Woman Who Fell to Earth, and Battle were multi-member ones, and also I did the Macra Terror animated version, and I'm thinking of doing the Faceless one. I might have to call that one, but might do that one there. In which case there'll be another link one here for that. So this will happen for the Dragonfire review remake, and the same for Idiots Lantern when that comes up. Whilst ones like ones that are still up there, like Attack of the Cybermen and School Reunion, will just they'll get re-released for this channel. But I'll also provide the links to the Universal's channel's review of them in the description. So yeah, next time I will be taking a look at Dragonfire on the Universal's channel, and I'm going to be ripping this story to shreds. Probably. Then again, I thought I'd do that with Time the Rani, and I didn't. But I'm pretty certain with this one, I'm going to be ripping this story to shreds. So tune in for that on the Universal's channel. And the review on this channel will be the link video to that. Check them out. And then we'll be on to season 25 with the outstanding Remembrance of the fucking Awesome Daleks. Well, after the season 24 ranking, of course. And then we're on to Remembrance of the fucking Awesome Daleks. Oh, I love that story. That's the best classic story of all time. I'm looking forward to that one. So I'll be ripping into this one, and then after the ranking of the season, we'll then get onto the best story of the entire classic era. God, it's actually worth sitting through this story to get to Remembrance, to be honest. And then the rest of the McCoy era is also really good from that point onwards. I'm not going to get anything as bad as Time the Rani or Dragonfire again. It's just, although it won't be as good as Remembrance, but it's still uphill-ish. So, see you guys next time for Dragonfire on the Universal's channel, and the review video on this channel will be its link video. Okay, goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Ray on the other, because it would be a dark story if it wasn't going to such a light angle in the way. Basically the next Adric death, I suppose. Maybe shot. But I don't think. Whilst I don't think there's enough here. I also like to point out, and I forgot to do this in the last two reviews. Enjoy this Tardos. You may not enjoy it, but I certainly think you'd. It's better than most of the current. So less less contradicted, not contradicted. Similarly, yes. And to be honest, and you know, I would rather watch Delta and the Bannermen any fucking day of the week over the fucking Space Pirates. And speaking of terrible Doctor Who stories, next time watch me. And speaking of Doctor Who. And speaking of terrible Doctor Who stories, next time, watch me ripping... And speaking of Doctor... I took part in a multi-member review autopace, but I'll also provide the links to the Universals ones whilst I'm reviewing them. Link video will rip into this story, looking forward to the best story of all time. And then the rest of the queer is pretty good from that good point. Link video will be the next one. And the review on this channel video